Hello, this is Aaron West. I am the author of the A24 New Wave. In this book, I look at A24's output and I make the argument that we are in a new wave movement right now. A24 plays a major role. This book has a supplemental podcast where each episode is a brief conversation about an A24 related topic, whether an actor, director, or even a genre. As I continue research for the book and conduct interviews, I expect to record podcast episodes with people involved with the company. You can find the podcast at cinejourneys.com or wherever you find podcasts, and we are proud to be members of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
Hello, this is Chris Haskell from They Live by Film. For those that don't know us, Adam, Zach, and I, we built a podcast over the last 2 years that's a combination of film discussion from 3 very different perspectives, as well as industry interviews with the leaders in boutique Blu-ray and 4K community. We started with Dev Crocodile, but over time we've been lucky enough to speak with Arrow Video, Severin, Mondo Macabro, Vinegar Syndrome, Radiance, Indicator, most of the OCN partner labels. It's been a blast. You can find us wherever you podcast, and also actually recently as part of Someone's Favorite Production podcast network. We hope to see you online.
We're in Wave Media. Welcome back, Midnight viewers, to Father Malone's Weekly Roundup, the Spoiler Roundup. This is an anomaly of an episode in that we're going back over previously covered material, and as that title suggests, this is going to be fucking spoilerific. We're going to rosebud all over Bruce Willis's ghost who's having lunch with Luke Skywalker's dad, also a ghost named Darth Vader. So if you don't know that Tyler Durden and Jack are the same person, you might want to leave. You know that Ed Norton's character's name, right? Not narrator. Definitely not Tyler. All the books he keeps finding, I'm Jack's colon, I'm Jack's blah blah blah. He's Jack. Anyway, got some corrections. In last week's episode, when I was discussing Alien Earth, I kept referring to the head of the Prodigy Corporation as Kid Cavalier. His name is Boy Cavalier. In my defense, I co-host Night Mr. Walters, a taxi podcast, and in the most recent episode of that, Tony Banta went incognito in the boxing ring as a fighter named Kid Rodriguez. And there have been a ton of Kid fighters, because Kid anything is a cool name. Boy would lose its luster at age 16. Probably earlier if you're a child genius, which clearly I am not, because it's Boy Cavalier. In other alien xenomorph corrections, my mother informed me that she would have definitely purchased that 18-inch alien figure for me had I only asked. This was a crushing revelation, as you might imagine. I mean, I'm certain 40 years later and that figure would be long gone or destroyed by me at some point, but it could have been mine. Freaking me out from the corner of my room as I tried to sleep. Jesus, I'm glad I didn't ask for it. My mother then reminded me of her one and only toy rule: no toy guns. As if I needed reminding that the only squirt gun I was allowed as a child was shaped like Bugs Bunny's head. Humiliating in neighborhood warfare situations. And that's all the corrections because my reporting otherwise is unassailable. And there's no Ripley here to check that. Well, I mean, she's here, but she's asleep. Remember a few months back I was obsessed with Mad Men? Because I discovered the joys of streaming services that have created entire channels populated with only one show? That's right, 24 hours a day of the Goldbergs. Bad example, that show's terrible. But anyway, Mad Men was like wallpaper here in the KAB Lighthouse for a few weeks, and now it's Mythbusters. Remember Mythbusters? Remember when everyone was obsessed with how cool science is for a few years there? That was heartening. Hopeful even. Well, there's like 18 seasons of that show, so that's what's on when I'm home these days. It's comforting to hear Adam Savage cackling in some portion of my home.
Oh, God.
And it's nice to see some critical thinking for a change. All right, that's the end of the social commentary. The other thing I'm ankle deep in these days is the Tim Robinson show, I Think You Should Leave, on Netflix. I was really slow warming to this fella and his humor. Even though every fucking comedian I respect has been singing his praises for years, I just couldn't crack that code. Then I watched his show Detroiters, also on Netflix, and that was the key. Robinson does cringy humor, which I am generally off-put by. Life is fucking awkward enough without experiencing it vicariously through others, but Robinson has elevated it into an art form. Also on Netflix, also I missed the boat on its initial run, the unauthorized Bash Brothers Experience, the Lonely Island's visual poem. This is a fictional album by Jose Canseco and Mark McGuire set in the late 1980s. The specificity of the music is what finally grabbed me here. The beats and the rhymes they're laying on top are so fucking era-appropriate that it hurts. I'm a little obsessed. It takes me half an hour to get to work. That album is 30 minutes. How many times do you think I've heard Andy Samberg as Jose Canseco boast about his room full of Kathy Ireland cutouts?
I got 100 cardboard cutouts of Kathy Ireland all in one room. I run through that shit naked, make them all watch me fuck myself with a broom. Oh, Cathys, all my Cathys, you're the only ones that know my pain, and you're the only ones that see my shame. Hey, yo, Jose, come on, man, we're late for the game.
Let's talk spoilers. I generally just don't give a shit about them myself. I'll read that script for something years before it's made if I can get my hands on it. My thing is, if the totality of the entertainment is based on one surprise, then how entertaining was it? Does it stand on its own? Does the twist or reveal deepen the other parts of the drama? And how fucking rewatchable is it? Anyway, my system of rules is not on trial here. I am very sensitive to those viewers who preserve the twist with their very lives. That's why I'm so hesitant to say as much as I do in the pocket reviews here on the Roundup, which is me saying turn this show off now if you're allergic to the future. And if that's the case, thank you for tuning in thus far, and I hope you'll be back on Friday where Yautja Fest returns. And our pal HP with it, he and I are discussing the PG-13 masterpiece, Aliens vs. Predator, AVP. Hey, you know me. No matter who wins, we lose. Look at that tagline. It's predicting the future. That's Friday, or if you want to hear that and our review of Alien vs. Predator Requiem, you can hear them both right now on the Patreon channel, as well as the latest installment of HP Hates Me, where he made me watch Corey Haim, Me, Myself, and I. What a fucking nightmare. Okay, you have now been sufficiently warned. Spoilers! Bye. Still here? Our main topic is going to be weapons, but I did want to touch on some of the alien Earth to start. By the time you hear this, you might actually know more than me, because the 4th episode will be out. As of this recording, I've watched the first 3, a couple of times. I have to talk about the fucking eyeball. You know the one. The Maginot, the Weyland-Yutani deep space research vessel at the center of the series, the one that crashed into a Prodigy building in New Siam, has apparently been in space for 65 years. The crew volunteered for what Ellen Ripley accidentally did to herself at the end of Alien. And they've brought back 5 species. One is the xenomorph. One is this horrible bug thing that drinks blood until it's a swollen sack of fleshy grossness. There's a flying thing that's yet to be revealed. There's what's being called the orchid, an apt name considering it looks like an unopened orchid bud hanging upside down and promising to open and reveal something really horrifying. And it'll have to be to top the T. ocellus. That's the crew's designation for the octopus eye, a giant eyeball with half a dozen irises, and tentacled legs that are tensile and lethal, and the motherfucker climbs into corpses, inserts itself into the ocular cavity, and then puppets their body. What the fuck, Noah Hawley? He demonstrates it with a cat. One that looks like Jonesy. Hawley himself described giggling as he was writing it, recognizing just how horrible the scene is. That's the correct response. As I said in the last roundup, Hawley understood the power of surprise in the first Alien film, and he very wisely realized he's not going to get there as far as mind-shattering moments like Kane in the very first burst chest, so instead he's stacking up so much twisted, odd, and morally questionable material that it creates the same overall effect as the chest burster. We're lucky he's interested in loftier ambitions, because I'm convinced had Hawley decided to just barrel into horror, this could be unrelenting and most likely scarring. Another thing that's kind of wackadoo off-kilter in this series is the young adults that are our heroes, and the fact that they're actually children. The show never shies away from reminding us about these tiny kids are running around in adult synthetic bodies, nor does it shrink from confronting some of the dodgier aspects to the process and the characters' own struggles with their new bodies and identities. Speaking of them, Wendy. Our lead is played by Sydney Chandler. In addition to being Kyle Chandler's daughter, who saw that coming, she was the best part of Danny Boyle's miniseries Pistol, about the rise of the Sex Pistols. Chandler played Chrissy Hind, and she fucking killed it. That series was adapted mainly from Steve Jones's memoir of his time in the Pistols. As such, it's heavily freighted towards Steve Jones as the chief creative force behind the Pistols. Which is great for the Chrissy Hind subplot, as she was Jones's friend, but I'll let you decide for yourself the overall quality. Maybe I should watch it again. I did come away with a deeper appreciation of both Chrissy Hind and Vivienne Westwood. In any event, I really like her in Alien Earth, and I particularly like the fact that Wendy and the Lost Boys are synthetic, hybrids. It solves two problems elegantly. James Cameron recognized that in a hand-to-hand situation, humans stand 0% chance of surviving against an alien, so he ramped up the firepower. And that's been the only solution since then, in any of the iterations. Until now. Because now our leads have no reason to fear the creature, and odds are they're just as strong. And this is the really clever bit. If, next season, he wanted to jump ahead, say, 20 years and tell the story of Amanda Ripley, who's out there searching for her mom, he could do so with these characters, who don't age. Jump another 30 years and he could have them running around the Sulaco while Hicks and Bishop and Ripley are slugging it out on LV-426. I'm not suggesting they need to do any of this actual interaction with legacy characters. I'm just saying it's possible. And exciting. Okay, weapons. Not joking anymore. This isn't a series you can push a button and watch right now, so if you haven't seen Weapons, here we go. It's witchcraft. There's a witch. She's kidnapping the children to feed on their life force. And by she, I mean Aunt Gladys. A shrunken apple doll under a severe, shocking red bob, and a slash of lipstick where her mouth ought to be. A character that, every time she popped up on screen, had me confusedly wondering, who is that? She really reminds me of Amy Madigan. Of course, it is Amy Madigan, who I hope is getting all the fucking notoriety she deserves. Remember her on Carnival? She was the real evil there, too. She has had a long and illustrious career, but here's the flick I always recommend. Streets of Fire. That's the Walter Hill A Rock and Roll Fable from 1984. She auditioned for Ellen Aim and ended up taking the role of McCoy. That is the badass, fully capable soldier of fortune sidekick that had been written for a man. That's how fucking awesome Amy Madigan is. And if you rewatch the movie, do so for one moment that involves McCoy. When our heroes have infiltrated Torchies, of course there's a Torchies, it's a Walter Hill movie, McCoy goes upstairs and gets one of the gang alone. The speed with which Amy Madigan draws a pistol and places it against the guy's skull is nothing short of breathtaking. See for yourself. So, weapons. Aunt Gladys. The story is that Alex, the only boy who didn't go missing, his parents inform him that a distant relative is ailing and coming to live with them. Thus, Gladys. And as soon as she's in the house, the parents are different. Distant, odd, threatening. Because Gladys, who claims at times to be Alex's aunt, his mother's sister, and Alex's great-aunt, a sister of his grandmother, is above all a witch. One who is winding down and falling apart and needs to feed, and has chosen Alex's parents, but finds that they're not sufficient sustenance. Thus, she targets Alex's class. A couple of things here. Because this is the line of demarcation, it would seem, amongst viewers of the film. A contentious line at that. The early images of those 17 children climbing out of bed and stepping out and running off into the night are so fucking evocative, and so weighted with possibility, that for a lot of people, finding out that it's the crazy old lady you avoid at the grocery store is kind of a letdown. And I get that. Because the mystery of 17 disappearances in one night is intriguing enough on its own. That there was seemingly no perpetrator is doubly so. And in my horrible brain, I go to Lovecraftian darkness. Those kids could very well be trapped in some hell of infinite teeth and terror. But you know how sometimes the oddest thing just clicks in your mind? A puzzle piece you didn't know you were looking for just appears. Here's how the overly analytical cinematic dissection machine of a brain of mine worked. I mentioned Fight Club earlier. You know what I realized in that movie? When Jack is punching himself in front of his boss, he thinks, for some reason, I thought about my first fight with Tyler. And my mind went, because you've been beating yourself up the whole time. There is no Tyler. Oh, we're following the journey of a crazy man. Somehow, the sight of the children running in the manner in which they do, and the mystery, and the title specifically, locked my brain in on the notion that it's witchcraft, and someone is controlling these children, and potentially as human weapons. That's still pretty vague, but it's also a pretty good cushion for the reveal. Because, had I been convinced of the limitless possibilities of what actually happened to those kids, I can see where, it's a witch, might be that letdown. But I was not let down. That's a scary fucking character, and a scarier scenario. We get 5 separate tales around the central mystery. Those are all peripheral characters when it comes down to it, because the only story that matters here is Alex's story. And the parallels between his ordeal with Aunt Gladys and the one children dealing with alcoholic parents or drug-addicted parents or rageaholic, workaholic, there's no shortage of parental distraction you can plug into this scenario. But Kreger himself has alluded to alcoholism at its root. Those parallels are largely unexplored in popular entertainment, and those are the images and scenes that keep turning over in my head. It's horrible to lose a child, I know, and it's horrible to deal with the fallout of tragedy in your community, especially when there's a mystery at the center of it, but it's so much worse for that child, trapped with a monster, compelled to do its bidding, and be forced into silence, above all, suffering alone. God damn it, that's fucking horrible. Piggybacking off of Paul Waller's podcast, A Year in Horror, for a second here, Paul mentioned on his show that Kreger offered Amy Madigan 2 backstories for Aunt Gladys. One, she was in fact the distant relative who in the intervening years since last they'd encountered her had found black magic and become a witch. Or she was never human to begin with, just a demon inside a withered human suit. We don't know which one Amy Madigan chose. We don't know which one Kreger had in mind. Which I love. I think it's in between. I think she's human, but I think she's impossibly old, and has been pulling this I'm your long-lost relative act for decades, if not centuries. But I don't suppose any of that matters, because they've already announced a prequel to Weapons, and that fills me with as much dread as some of the scenes in it. Look, so far, Kreger's has shown remarkable restraint and thoughtfulness, so I shouldn't doubt his intentions with a prequel. It's just that prequels tend to be exposition machines for films that deftly avoided such clumsiness. Oh, that's why he said that. Oh, it's really a ghost. No answer is scarier than no answer. You dig? Weapons, the movie, has stayed with me on a lot of levels, but it's the finale that really grabbed me by the lapels. The sight of children, previously hypnotized and fed upon by a shriveled old crone, who's using an arcane system of outdated beliefs and powers over them, chasing her down and tearing her apart, was more than cathartic. It was joyful. It was fucking hopeful. There. Actual end of social commentary. And end of this brief but also weird episode of the Roundup. I'm always around if you want to talk about this subject, or any subject really. Check the show notes. On Instagram, we are at midnight_viewing. Oh my god, check out our Instagram, everybody. Paul Williams. Rainbow Connection Paul Williams. Swan from Phantom of the Paradise Paul Williams. Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas Paul Williams. Liked and commented and reposted one of my posts. And it's one where I'm singing one of his songs. So I now consider myself a singer with Paul Williams' seal of approval. Anyway, find us there, or hit me up on the email, or go to the Patreon and buy Ripley a new bag of pork medallion dog treats. Oh, fuck, I said it out loud, and now she's awake. And staring. Well, for a hungry Ripley Jean, I'm Father Malone. See you on Friday. What? I have no treats!
Baseball, baseball, He-Man, hit the baseball. By the power of Grayskull, rip the skin off and eat the brains out the baseball. Gonna run a motherfucking train on the baseball. Don't tell me to be fucking calm. Rip out my dick on the Jumbotron. Rip out my bones cause my muscles so strong. Now the pain's so bad that my motherfucking heart stopped.
Hey, this is Jason Kleberg from the Force 5 podcast, a show that forces a guest to come up with a movie-themed top 5 list topic, and then we reveal our picks on air. Top 5 heist films, top 5 tearjerkers, top 5 movie dogs. Every show you'll be asking yourself, what would be on my list? Guests include directors, screenwriters, actors, podcasters, musicians, authors, and even a professional wrestler. Subscribe to the Force 5 podcast, and you won't just be a listener, you'll be a list nerd. The Force 5 podcast, available wherever you're listening now.
Have you ever wanted to dive deeper into the horror movies you love? Beyond the Blood is a horror podcast for fans who want more than just surface-level screams. We do deep dives into the movies that shaped us, digging into director commentaries, behind-the-scenes stories, deleted scenes, and the special features that most people skip. Each episode is a love letter to the genre. We break down how these films were made, the creative risks that paid off or didn't, and the lasting impact they've had on the genre as a whole. From 70s slashers to modern nightmares, we celebrate the craft, chaos, and characters that keep us coming back. If you're the kind of fan who rewatches movies with the commentary on, or you simply grew up in the video store horror aisle, the Beyond the Blood podcast was made for you. New episodes every single week. Subscribe, and let's dig deep. Welcome to the Beyond the Blood podcast.